I think we can all agree that passwords suck. They're complex, you need too many of them. But what other option do you have? Well, there's something called passwordless authentication, and I think it's something that everybody needs to know about. It's the future, but it might not quite be there yet. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus, and welcome back. So what are wrong with passwords? What's the problem? Well, one, we have too many of them, so we can't remember them. Two, we're humans, so a lot of us just reuse the same password across multiple sites, across multiple locations. Sometimes we use our personal passwords with business. We mix and match when we shouldn't. And what's worse is some people actually write them on sticky notes and attach them to the monitor. Shh. No, seriously, don't do that. It's very easy for somebody just to walk in, see it, and be able to use it. And passwords lead us to being able to have our identities attacked. See, the reality is when you click on a phishing email and it goes to like some sort of web page that looks like a Microsoft 365 login or looks like a Google login page or some other login page, they're trying to get your credentials. Well, when you give them your password, you're giving them access to whatever you have access to as well. But it goes beyond that. If you use bad passwords, they're susceptible to things like brute force, where people will just use programs to generate random username and password combinations to actually log in. Credential stuffing, where they use leaked or stolen credentials from one account to gain access to another account. Again, we'll go back to phishing. That's still a problem. Keylogging. People can, if they get a keylogger on their machine, they type in their username and their password. Guess what? It gets sent back to a bad actor. Man-in-the-middle attacks. It could be intercepting communication streams over public Wi-Fi and replaying those credentials, or even over your local network and replaying those credentials. These are the problems with passwords. So what do we do about it? Well, one option is to look towards passwordless authentication to solve that problem. So what is passwordless authentication? Well, it's kind of simple. It's something you use probably every day. Do you use your fingerprint or your face to log into your phone? That's passwordless authentication. Now you have a PIN to back it up because you should have a backup method for anything you log in with. But again, that's passwordless. It's any way that you can access an IT system or an application or a device without providing a password or answering a security question. But there's a big distinction with it. It's an outcome. It's a goal. It's not necessarily a product. So the object of passwordless authentication is to provide technologies to our end users, to our companies, that support use cases that reduce or eliminate the use of passwords. Now, that's a problem. We're not 100% there yet. But let's talk now about why is passwordless authentication better than using a password. So every year, Verizon releases this data breach investigation report. And what they found out last year, 61% of data breaches involve the use of unauthorized credentials. But guess what? If we don't have passwords, they can't be leaked. See, you're probably thinking that it sounds cool, but you might be questioning, is it necessary? And that's one of the reasons why it's necessary. Now, passwords are still going to be a necessary evil. Not everything supports passwordless authentication or single sign-on to where you can have one identity and sign into multiple places. But it just highlights, again, 61% of data breaches were involved because credentials were stolen. So despite our increase in password security awareness, despite our use of password managers, despite our use of policies and training users, it's hard for people to manage 100 or 200 passwords. That's the average. 200 passwords is the average that somebody has, and it might double by 2023. So as a result, a lot of passwords are weak or reused. That's what we talked about. So this is why going passwordless is actually a better option than staying with passwords, if you can do it. All right, let's cover 4 ways that you can actually benefit from going passwordless. No passwords means stronger security. We just talked about it. Somebody clicks on a phishing email and they can't put a password in. They probably know it's a phishing email and link. Removing passwords just creates a better user experience. If somebody doesn't have to put a password in, if they can just use a hardware key, or they can just use their face or put a number in on a phone, It's a much easier experience for the users. They don't have to remember 200 passwords, and by 2023 it could be 400 passwords. It promotes greater workforce productivity. By decreasing the use of passwords, you also decrease the need for password resets. So you don't have to worry about trying to get access to your system because you forgot your password. Now, it does create other challenges, but like if you had a hardware token, you lost it, that creates a challenge. But using passwords every day and forgetting your passwords is something that just happens to people. And logging in without passwords can actually save you money. See, it eases the burden on service desk. If you have internal IT, it's going to ease that burden of minimizing how often passwords have to get reset. It's going to lower your costs. Because you may not want to use hardware tokens. Maybe those are expensive and you just want to use like push notifications and biometrics on a phone. That's something that people already have. It could lower your costs. So that's the way we have to think about the benefits of going passwordless. So how does passwordless work? Well, if you're only using passwordless authentication, an example would be you'd walk up to your computer, you have to put your username in, and then instead of putting a password in, you would hit the submit and it would send a push notification based on your username to your phone where you would say, yes, this is me, by proving your identity with like your face or your thumbprint, and you would hit accept, and then your computer would just log in. All right, so let's talk about Microsoft 365 and how we can have passwordless authentication there. So there's an authenticator app that Microsoft supports, and they support doing both multi-factor authentication and passwordless authentication into Microsoft 365. The experience is a little different. When you're using it as multi-factor authentication, you type your username in, your email address, and then your password. You hit submit. It's going to send a push notification to your phone that says, hey, is this you? And you click allow, and it logs you in. The passwordless version of that is a little different in that you go to the portal, you put your email address in, you hit next. It's going to show you a 2-digit code. You open up your authenticator app, you type in the 2-digit code, and then you hit allow. And then it's going to scan your face or your thumbprint based on whatever phone you're using, and it'll allow you to log in. Now, you can also use a hardware token like a FIDO2 token, like a YubiKey, to also do that, but most people are probably going to use the authenticator app. So that's how that works. If you want to expand on that and you want to use other applications like software as a service applications, if they use or allow the Microsoft sign-in to be your single sign-in source for logging into that application, so you can use passwordless authentication with Microsoft to get into multiple applications. So let's say you want to turn it on for, let's say Zoom. Zoom, if you buy enough accounts, supports single sign-on. I think you have to buy 10, to use an example. So if you buy 10, you turn it on, you can use Microsoft as your authentication mechanism. So when you go to Zoom, it will redirect you to Microsoft, you authenticate to Microsoft, you get into your Zoom account. If you have passwordless turned on your Microsoft account, guess what? Now you have passwordless turned on in your Zoom account as well. So that's a simplified version of doing that. The problem we're going to have is with legacy applications that don't support that, you're not going to be able to go passwordless. So people are still going to need passwords. But if you can eliminate the number of passwords people need or reduce it, I guess a better way to say that is reduce the number of passwords people need, it's going to reduce complexity. It's going to make a better user experience. So as we look forward, like I said, passwordless authentication is available for certain things. There's tools you can use to enable it on Windows. There's tools that you can use to enable it on Microsoft 365 or Google, but it's not quite there yet. So until we get more single sign-on applications, more legacy applications pushed back, you're probably going to have a hard time eliminating passwords completely, but it's something to talk to your IT provider about, something to talk to somebody else about, maybe a third party, maybe us, about can passwordless authentication actually be put into our business? Because if it reduces the number of phishing attempts you can get, it might be worth it. It might be worth it just for that, just for email, just for one point solution, it might be worth going to. So this is a decision you have to make inside your business, weigh your risks, look at it, and say, hey, if most of my people are using Microsoft 365, they have phones and things like that, they can literally just download a free app, we can turn it on, and we can set it up with them. But it's not there yet. Again, it can only be used in certain situations, and that's probably the biggest problem with it, because everything for decades has been all about passwords. Well, now we're getting to a point where we can use our identity, we can use hardware tokens to get around having to have passwords, and it makes everybody more secure. So it's something that it's kind of there. You can kind of put it in point solutions right now. Hopefully in the next couple of years, Microsoft and Google are really pushing this. I think Apple's pushing it as well. We're going to get to a point where most authentication we do is without a password. And that's awesome. But until then, keep your password managers around. Make sure you're doing passwords. Follow the stuff we talked about last week with longer passwords. And you're going to be a lot more safe online, or a lot safer online. So I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. Like, subscribe, comment, ask us questions, engage with us. Tell us what you want to see. This month's all about identity. So we're going to cover things tied around identity. But if you have a topic you want covered for a month, let us know. Maybe we'll choose your topic. So until next time, stay cyber safe.